Hey everybody, how's it going? It's RambleCast time. It's February 8th, last I checked. And I'm Cody Toombs.
Hello.
Yeah, I changed it up. I didn't say your name or introduce you.
My name is whatever you want it to be.
Oh dude, don't give me that power. So I'm here with Poison Ivy.
Yeah, I'm here with Chucklefuck.
Oh come on. I would not say that. That is family unfriendly. I'm here with Chuckle Nuts.
Yeah. I'm here with a co-host piece of shit. How's it going?
Oof. Man. Corbin does not think highly of himself.
I'm only 1/3 the way through this Dunkin' coffee, so I don't have the good jokes yet.
I find that the more tired and sleep deprived I am, that's usually when I get funnier. So you guys are in for a show today.
Great.
But no, there's maybe a show today. I don't know. We'll kind of see, because some companies did some things. They're mostly either not that impressive or kind of bad, and we're gonna make fun of them, because that's kind of what they're begging us to do, trying really hard to make us make fun of them.
I know it looks like I have like a tick right now, but that's me. Like, I realize these headphones have an independent volume from my Mac volume for some reason. At least while it's in like this headset mode. So I was like trying to turn it all the way up. Okay, all right, I'm good now.
I was just assuming you were that guy from the Star Wars movies that doesn't have a line, but he just had those giant headsets on and he was always fiddling with them.
Yeah, that's me.
Though I think he was only in like 2 very, very quick cuts of film. But hey, he stood out.
That means he'll have a 3-season show next year.
He really will. Oh man, how many shows have they created with characters that no one's heard of or had no history?
Watched none of them. Maybe one day.
Well, one of these days they need to actually make a show about damn it, I was hoping I'd have the name by the time I said it. Oh, what was the thing's name? It was Jabba the Hutt's weird laughing buddy.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I know what you're describing.
Oh, it had such a great name. Not Bib Fortuna.
Speaking of a great name, Android Upside Down Cake.
Wait, seriously, is that the name?
Yes.
Oh, crap. Oh, the name was Salacious B. Crumb. I love that name. That was the greatest name. Salacious B. Crumb.
Great.
All right. Anyway, Upside Down Cake. I've actually made one of those.
Nice. Yeah. So we got the first developer preview of Android 14 today.
Yes, we do.
And this is how the Android releases work every year. We get a developer preview pretty early in the year, and then a few months later we get a beta release, which is when usually the cool stuff shows up. And then when Google starts rolling it out to anyone who opts in to the beta updates on their Pixel phones, so more people can try it out. And then sometime later there's a final release, so probably August or September again. There is a little timeline image on that page, and they have final release sometime after July, so I'd guess August again, probably. Unless there's another pandemic, we never know. But yeah, the initial developer previews are usually pretty They never have anything splashy. This is when Google introduces like the bulk of the new APIs.
I would describe it. At first, I would say they occasionally do have some splashy stuff. It's more so now than in the past. Like in the first few years of them releasing stuff early, they were very, very cagey about ever putting features in that were like the actual new features. And then somewhere along the way, that kind of changed, and it seemed like they were almost putting everything into the releases somewhere around like... well, they weren't doing the developer previews at first, they were just doing the betas, but somewhere along the way, they seemed to kind of commit to, sure, we'll just put everything in the betas, who cares? And they've kind of now, from what I've seen, it's now getting spread out more. Which, what that tells me is that they really want they really like the news cycle. They want a news cycle that every month pops up and is like, oh hey, guess what came out this time. Because that is a smarter way to play the news cycle. So
maybe my if I was gonna pin this on one thing, I would make the assumption that I think they just like need way more testing time for these releases, because like I've seen like the past couple of cycles over and over, we've seen stuff where like it's in a beta at some point, but they just do not have the time to get it 100% done, so it gets pushed off to the next year. Like that's what happened with scrolling screenshots and like a bunch of other stuff that kind of happened with scope storage, I think, or it was like kind of in there, but it wasn't like recommended for developers to use yet or something. I forget what, but I just think they need more public testing time with a lot of this stuff, so they're spreading out. And also the timeline has extended a little bit, because I remember a couple years ago they used to release, well, I shouldn't say spread out, but like shifted, where like the Android releases were normally coming in like October or like late September, sometimes November, usually like whenever the Pixel phones came out. But now that's shifted up, so now the releases the past, I think 2 years, are like August for both of them. So now we've got like 4-ish months of changes that show up in this first developer preview. So the initial previews may be a little bit bigger than before, because we've now got a larger gap between Android 13 is done, here's Android 14 now. I don't know if that made sense, but
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, one way or the other, they're obviously getting a lot of stuff packed into the releases. Just it's not necessarily the shocker, oh my god level types of things.
Yeah. Austin said, I like it hinting at satellite connectivity in the logo. I'm not sure if that's what it is. I don't know if it was someone on the Android team, but I saw someone mention that they're like, they kind of use the Apollo mission badges as inspiration for these logos. And if you look at the Apollo 14 badge, I just opened Wikipedia. It's like also it's not exactly like it, but it's like a line going around. So it could also be satellites. I don't know. The satellite stuff is happening much slower and out of Google's control, so it would be kind of a weird thing for them to promote. But yeah, so this release, it's got some more like tablet large screen layout stuff. It's got they're trying to tweak how alerts work again, and like things that wake up the device or stay in the foreground, because that's still the eternal problem on Android. Excuse me. And there's some more stuff with font scaling. Kind of the interesting thing for me is they're like trying, but like half trying to fully block old apps from being installed. So there's still the problem of applications targeting Android versions before 6.0 Marshmallow when they introduced permissions prompts.
Runtime permissions. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd install the app and it would instantly have access to everything. Of course, like I'm sure they could, work in a layer that sort of adds that to older apps like CyanogenMod used to have, but I guess they don't really want to do that. So Android 14 just blocks any apps with the older SDK level than 6.0 from being installed. You can override it through ADB, so it's not like a full block. And also, if you have a phone that has an old app installed and you update to Android 14, it will not uninstall the app. So kind of the same thing as scope storage, where like if you have an app that's targeting the older thing, it won't break it.
Yeah. Which, all things considered, if you're talking about something that hasn't been updated in that long, yeah, the odds are it's probably not even going to work very well with the OS anymore. But that doesn't mean it isn't still useful, especially with games. I feel like invariably that is the thing that is always true. Games came out ages ago. The developers don't really need to keep supporting them because not much changes. So as long as they aren't like kind of crossing a line with permissions, for the most part, they're fine. So I'm sure a lot of people still have old leftover copies of some game here or there. But aside from that, yeah, like most apps, if they're not updated by now, they're probably not working right.
Yeah, because I was trying to think when I was writing this, like I think this is the first time Android has been like fully don't run old apps. Because I know in one of the previous releases they added like a warning that showed up that said this app might not work, but I don't think we've had a full like hard disconnect yet with Android. Obviously, like I'm sure if you tried to install SDK 5 app on a brand new phone, it would probably break.
Yeah.
But there's not like a full like no, this like flat out won't work like Apple does every 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, which we all know is kind of problematic, but
and
they get away with
it. Austin linked a tweet from
Hiroshi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who said, "Wild to think about user experiences for phones that can connect to satellites. When we launched the HTC G1, that was HTC, right?
Yes.
Yeah. In 2008, it was a stretch to get 3G plus Wi-Fi working. Now we're designing for satellites. Excited to support our partners in enabling all this in the next version of Android." And that was tweeted in September, which was that when Qualcomm? No,
that was before Qualcomm.
Satellite stuff later. Yeah, so I guess was he just? I don't know what that correlated to.
I have a feeling this could just be him saying like, we know we're working on it and we know there's going to be someone supporting it. Which means that they probably already knew Qualcomm was going to support it. It just hadn't been Qualcomm, like, they hadn't announced it yet.
Yeah.
Which in retrospect, kind of, that's one of those times where if you'd read between the lines, that'd be a great time to have thrown a whole bunch of money investing in Qualcomm. Because I'm sure Qualcomm's announcement probably did at least a few bucks because it's a thing Apple had and then Qualcomm was going to top it. Like, that much was known. I don't know if that actually affected their stock price, though.
Yeah, I don't know, because also they're not fully building the satellite stuff. They're just sort of building some of the radios, but they're using a different company for the actual network, which is also what Apple's doing. But I wrote about their satellite stuff when it was new, and it's very confusing to me in the way that like most of Qualcomm's announcements are, where they're like, look at this hardware we're building. We can't tell you literally anything about what the end result will be for the user because we don't control that part. So, they were showing like demos of apps where you can like, text over a satellite connection really slowly. And I was in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, so like Qualcomm's building some of the tech stack, and this will eventually result in like the S25 having a Galaxy satellite app that Samsung will charge $10 a month for or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I want to see how that turns out, but my hunch is that it's going to be not good.
And by the way, hello to, of course, Austin, David, and Kirby. Great to see you guys in the chat.
Hello,
Austin's saying, I took it as native satellite connectivity support in 14, which, yeah, that's pretty much what I think is... That's how I would take Hiroshi's comment. Currently, OEMs need to build out all the software. I have a feeling the OEMs aren't actually building this out. I think Google probably communicated with them up front just to say, let's not have one of those situations. We'll do it. You can help us, but we'll do it, and then everyone just gets it.
Yeah, or the satellite support in Android 14 is just kind of like what a lot of the initial 5G stuff was, where it's like, here's like the icons that show up in the system. Here's how it's going to like prioritize data and calls and stuff.
Yeah, to some extent, I'm sure it's a shim, but
yeah, the rest of it's on Qualcomm. So yeah, that was kind of an interesting change there. They also have new APIs. They've got OpenJDK 17 in there, and I saw Michelle found a few extra things in the settings, but nothing like super mega huge. Again, like I don't. What did they put the list of devices here? Yeah, so this runs on a Pixel 4a 5G or newer, or a Pixel 5 or newer. So once again, like Google's working on tablet stuff, but they don't have a tablet for you to try this on.
Not yet.
Not yet.
And for what it's
you can
worth,
fire up the Android Studio emulator.
Yeah, exactly. For what it's worth, we're probably not that far away from Pixel tablet. I don't know. Obviously, the way they've talked about it and the timing, it sounds like they might release it during I/O, or they might. It'll depend on a lot of things. It could come during I/O, or they might announce it officially, or more officially at I/O, and then wait till the Pixel event. But just given the timing, it seems like they're probably going to aim for I/O.
Yeah, could very well. But yeah, so that's Android 14 to start with. It's certainly a release.
Austin with all those promo codes. I'm still mad they haven't even sent my swag bag yet.
I am curious, like what, and y'all in the chat can give your answer too. Like what do we think is gonna be the headline feature for Android 14? What are they gonna do this year?
That'll be interesting.
I have no clue. Maybe satellite stuff if like they have enough of a demo to get people excited, but I think that's hard because like there's too many moving pieces there.
And honestly, I don't. Even Apple didn't really demo it. They showed you what it looks like, but they didn't sit there and actually like show a live actual connection.
They didn't like. I'm just imagining they go back. They do like the zooming in and out of the WWDC videos, but they zoom out and they put Tim just in the middle of the desert. He's like, "Let me show you how to make a satellite call out here."
And well, How great would it be just to see Sundar go out there and stand in the middle of the desert and be like, look, I can text.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a very fun commercial. Just like
and then he would tell everyone
down
how
a
it's
call
going
and
to
they keep
change
zooming
things for people living in remote locations. And somehow he will make it seem like it is the most philanthropic thing Google has ever done. But yeah,
yeah, it is going to be interesting when we find out how much Apple wants to charge for the satellite feature. They only gave a year of that, starting when you buy the phone. So that'd be September of this year, I believe. Is when the 1 year mark comes up for the people who bought the phone first. So
yeah,
that'll be fun.
There's so much of a we'll see what happens kind of thing there. So yeah, as far as I know, most of what Michelle posted is pretty much the same thing that was on this Android developers blog, which I will link to the official blog post in chat just in case anybody wants to follow along. But yeah, it's not a lot of particularly big stuff. There's obviously like some usability stuff. There's kind of like better language support, which for app language preferences, wasn't that in 13?
There was app specific language preferences in 13.
Yeah, not sure what they're.
So this is
you can dynamic
more easily add support for users who speak languages which have grammatical gender.
Well, yeah, but the one right above that.
Oh.
Per app language preferences. So maybe they improved on this in some way, or maybe made it.
Well, they say dynamically update, so maybe it was fixed somehow before. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can never learn another language.
American school system, folks. Hey, considering
I learned nothing.
Considering how bad my Spanish teacher was, and I say this sincerely, she genuinely did not know Spanish. She claimed she did, but holy crap, the actual Spanish speaker in the class who was getting the easy A out of it, he confirmed very clearly she didn't know a damn thing about what she was saying. But yeah. Anyway, that happened.
No me ghost.
Let's see. Anyway, there's a lot of little stuff in here from what I see, but yeah, no big blockbuster items. At least not really.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a bunch of little stuff.
And what I also find kind of, well, so I just, if you're watching the stream, I just scrolled down to Credential Manager and Passkey support. Literally something that rolled out already in the form of, I'm sure, Play Services update or something like that. Credential Manager and Passkey support is not going to be an OS level thing. So yeah, this isn't even an Android 14 feature. Yeah. Cool. But hey, it is what it is. They're advertising things that are just new. It is kind of neat seeing OpenJDK 17 support. Not that that's going to have a particularly profound effect for development, but yay. They're actually legitimately updating that more frequently, which is just so much better than the first many years of Android. Because anyone who was stuck developing on what language version of Java was it? I think it was Java 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Android was stuck on that forever, and it was terrible.
And is that They're talking specifically about like language features, right? Like
Yeah.
they've got their own VM.
Yeah, this isn't the actual OpenJDK.
Right.
It's basically more their I don't want to say their take on it because that'd be kind of disingenuous. But yeah, it's kind of
Like
a hybrid.
Yeah. their VM, whatever.
Yeah, they got the language features, but it's not necessarily it's definitely not the exact same implementation. So, yeah, I noticed no one bit on your question of what is going to be the big like landmark feature, and I think that's because everyone's in agreement there isn't one.
Yeah, it will look slightly better again on tablets.
Yeah,
All hail foldable phones.
yeah, and I will grant I'm kind of hoping that maybe this time for real, maybe we'll get an actual like legitimate tablets are good finally kind of a thing. I think that's overly optimistic, but you never know. And I'm not sure how they would do that.
I mean, I think the Android OS itself seems pretty fine on tablets at this point. It's just always the apps, and Google has still been at a snail's pace with the apps.
Well, to say it's the apps, I mean, that's true. Obviously, it's true. But it comes down to, in large part, that the SDK has never really been very friendly for building tablet apps. That was a problem way back in the beginning, especially because they rolled out the most busted as can be implementation of fragments that could have ever existed, which also didn't help that it had a name that was basically triggering to everyone who's a longtime Android user. But yeah, it's because making a good tablet app for Android has always been a huge pain in the butt, and you know that has gotten better, but it hasn't
not for me
changed.
because my apps are web wrappers.
Yeah.
Or just straight up web apps. I never made a wrapper for everything that wasn't PhotoStack, and I'll probably pull the PhotoStack one.
Yeah. But yeah, all things considered, they could probably make OS level changes that would make it a little bit easier, but I don't know how far that would really go to motivating people. So, yeah. Anyway, I don't know, is there anything else to call out on this one, or?
No, I was trying to decide which AI one to talk about first, because I can't remember which one was announced first.
Google.
It was okay. Yeah, it was Google. And the next day was Microsoft. This week's been kind of a blur for me.
This week's been very AI heavy.
Yeah, there's very much a we need to rush at this now because investors expect us to thing coming from both Google and Microsoft at this moment, to the point where Microsoft just like suddenly announces an in-person event and they don't do a live stream for it, which kind of tells me that this was rushed and they literally did not have time to set up a video live stream. It was just easier to ask like The Verge if they wanted to come over for a play date with the new AI stuff.
I mean, it certainly could be that, but I think a big part of it might also just be the literal please forgive us, we're demoing something to you that we don't know if it's going to work. That's kind of the takeaway I got. They definitely did not seem like they seemed confident. I saw that video that was taken by somebody on their phone, and it looked like they were moderately confident with it, but I wouldn't say it looked like they were sure that it was going to work right.
Yeah, there was something with Google later that I can bring up when we get to the Google stuff, but
yeah, I didn't see the one with Google. I knew there was an announcement. I just didn't check out what it was.
Yeah.
That was the one from Paris, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I woke up, I saw like something in my feed about a Google event. I'm like, I can't take this week. And then it turns out it already happened because it was in France. And that was when I was asleep. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I'll put the Microsoft thing in the YouTube chat. And yeah, so Microsoft has been investing a lot in OpenAI, which is the company that made DALL-E image generator and ChatGPT. And there's been rumors for a while that Microsoft was gonna like. Well, they already were building products with OpenAI stuff. They announced like some new like design tools for Office that were using like DALL-E, I think. But it was there was speculation that they were going to use a lot more of this stuff in their existing products, and this is the first big example of that. Bing is their search engine that's very mediocre, and now they are working on a version of it that is just like a chat prompt, basically. So you can still do web searches, but they also have an additional screen where you just ask questions. Like they use the example of my anniversary is coming up in September. Help me plan a trip somewhere fun in Europe leaving from London. Or will the IKEA love seat fit in my 2019 Honda Odyssey? And the idea is that it can answer advanced questions like that using information from the web in much the same way you see with ChatGPT, but Microsoft was very insistent that they're using a newer version of the AI stuff than is currently in ChatGPT. And also their implementation is better simply because it cites sources, which was one of my huge red flags with ChatGPT, is that every dumbass crypto person on Twitter was like, we don't need teachers anymore. You can just ask ChatGPT questions. I'm like, usually, like, if you're praising something as a fantastic information resource, I think it needs to tell you where it got something from.
Yeah.
That was a huge issue, especially because like it's so good at lying. Like it's so good at making stuff up that sounds real. Like when I ask it like, what did I do? It got like 2 things right, and then it also said a bunch of stuff about me that wasn't true, but I guess could sound true if you don't really know that much about me. So this is already better than that, but it's still AI, so it's still going to be wrong sometimes. And there's still the issue where like they fixed the citation issue, which I was really not thrilled about with ChatGPT and other stuff like this. But there's still the underlying problem where, number one, it's going to be wrong sometimes, which like, okay, fine, whatever. Number two, I still don't see a plan in place for vetting the information. Because like people love to complain about search engines right now because like Google's a mess, Bing's always been bad, whatever. And the part of that is the engines themselves, like the user experience is bad. Like if you do a Google search for like a new car, like you're gonna see like 15 different ad blocks and then like some results somewhere. So that's not good. But the other issue is just that Google has gotten worse over time at figuring out what is like quality information and not just copy paste it from somewhere else.
And in general, there are so many people who have pushed the SEO barriers to the limits. They are actively shoving just pure garbage onto the internet in massive quantities. And because they've become such experts at pushing it, the actual good information mostly gets buried.
Yeah, so really a lot of the issues with like Google right now comes down to they they don't care or they can't tell the difference between what is quality content or not. Like I think the CNET reporting from I think it was last month was pretty enlightening. How CNET just had AI writing posts, and those posts were pretty regularly at the top of Google results for whatever they were targeting, but the posts were completely wrong. But didn't matter. So Bing's Bing stuff, it's still pulling results from presumably the same group of algorithms that the normal search engine does. So this is going to pull I'm assuming how this works on a basic level is that it's getting information queries from the same index that normal Bing uses, and it's just going to grab the first second whatever result. And I think there was The Verge mentioned in their live blog that they showed a question that was about where they were asking Bing what the best TV for something specific. I think they said the best TV for gaming, and they added another question there, and then it was citing Forbes. So that to me was immediate okay, we're solving nothing.
Yeah.
That is not the source you go. Forbes, the website where literally anyone can be a writer. And I believe a couple years ago, there was a thing where someone was able to become a writer and then was spreading some kind of propaganda. Or it's just a complete, it's the same quality as Reddit. Maybe worse than Reddit. Because
I would say worse.
People get paid to write on Forbes. So anyway.
Well, this is obviously not entirely an inside baseball thing to say, but I imagine a lot of people think this outside of just tech blog circles, but internally, I can't count how many times internally at AP we had just this blanket some information came from Forbes. And our discussion just instantly went to, okay, but can you find a good source? Yeah. That was just the default thing is they said it. Now, can we find a good source? Can we find something we actually trust? That's, that's not a good place to be coming from if you just by default do not trust a site. It would be the same as trusting the National Enquirer with anything. You just don't. And there are probably about 24 sites that are in the tech blog circles that I just always defaulted to. This isn't real information. Ironic, right? I would say that because one of those sites is The Information. But yeah, if you can't trust certain things, those are not the sites that I would want to use as training data.
Yeah. And again, the fact that Forbes was in that demo, and then that was, and I saw some other screenshots. I didn't recognize some of the other sites, but maybe they're, there's a lot of back in the days of where blogs could be pretty functional, even if they were small. There were a lot of really niche websites doing really great reporting and fact finding, so maybe they were using some of those, and I don't know those specific ones, but that made me concerned. And of course there's a lot of so from a user perspective, I would be worried that the training data is not good, especially if it's there's sort of a game of telephone that already happens where someone reports on data that someone else reported on, that someone else reported on. So now you've got a game of telephone plus an AI is re-indexing it to spit out something. So that doesn't really make me feel great from a user perspective, especially when these citations are they're not putting this part came from this in line in the text results. It's like Wikipedia where they do a little number and it's at the bottom. So it's diluting where the information comes from, which for me is part of determining if I can trust a certain thing, but I realize that's not true for most people. So I don't really love that. The other thing is also the me being is where a lot of publishers are like, there's a lot of websites that completely exist to explain technical topics, and I may work at one of those. So how's it gonna affect that? I don't know.
Yeah, well,
Because like this is basically like a more complex version of the thing that a lot of web publishers already didn't like, which is the almighty like information card that embeds part of the, like when if you Google like a Stack Overflow question, like the answer shows up without you having to click the link. So this is like a supercharged version of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of questions here, and it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to pull up the classic example, but the actual like how do I install or uninstall something, like that classic one, it will almost always, like, Google is very good at finding an article that will answer that, especially if it has steps involved, and it just puts the content right up there on the page, and if you click through, well, you're the sucker who clicked through. And in this particular instance, I searched how to uninstall Skype, which it pulled up the actual Skype page. I'm sure Skype doesn't care if you click through, but a lot of times it will pull up sites that have ads on them. And that site, like, their ad money basically just got lost because Google is sharing this. And the funny thing is, Google really encourages sites to make it easy for them to include this information. They have an actual, like, I wouldn't call it an API, but they have a format to define how this stuff
like
is supposed to be shown.
On something, I forget what exactly it's called.
Yeah, and it's not like they're paying sites for this, so I've never really understood why any sites actually support it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't fully know either. I guess maybe the benefit of having the top spot and having people click through is more clicks than you would get if you were like number 3 and just a link, but I don't know.
Yeah, could be. Regardless, this sort of feature, it's already taking a lot out of what sites get, and by just literally presenting the abbreviated form in a chatbot, it's going to get worse. And that is, by and large, what, if you're talking about search itself, that is pretty much what they're offering. That's what, it's not exactly what Bing was showing off, but it's pretty close. Bing's thing was a little bit more oriented towards browse to a site, then ask for a summary of what's on there. Google seems to be focusing a little bit more on, we're just going to try to give you answers rather than make you look through sites that would give those answers. Which means that they're going to be taking away more ad impressions.
Yeah, and Microsoft, I believe, did say that there'll be ads like in this somewhere, but of course there'll be ads that presumably Microsoft is getting money from, not any of the sites they're scraping for data, which that's going to be a really fun like legal thing I'm sure will pop up. And
it's certainly a bad ethical issue. I don't know that they're going it. Well, since they are citing sources, it will eventually possibly become a legal thing. But honestly, I think that's one of the reasons ChatGPT never cited sources, is they don't want somebody coming down on them for what is effectively just copyright infringement, which they are, I believe, actually being sued for, or at least threatened with a lawsuit over copyright infringement, because at least a few people have found blatant copyright infringement stuff that they found the right way to ask ChatGPT something, and it basically just spit out like nearly verbatim text from the website, and it's like, yep, this is just scraping. It's not anything real. It's just copy and paste of someone else's writing.
Yeah, and then there's other issues where, like, if I asked this, like, what are the best Xbox games I should play right now? Like, is it gonna scrape data from websites that of like people? Like, I don't know a good way to phrase this, but like I see also potential issues with with how helpful its answers will be if it's scraping something that's like mostly opinion based, but it's from multiple sources.
Well,
like,
to be
the
fair,
point where it's
the first thing it might do is just go look at the Metacritic scores and figure something out based on that. But I would be worried about the other version of what you were kind of headed towards and then veered off from. What about if they have a motivation to change the answers? Because in that particular question that that you just posed, why wouldn't their answer be all the games that, like, if they're trying to drive more people to Game Pass, maybe their answer would be all games that are on Game Pass. If maybe they're thinking that they've got enough subs there, and the strategy is to drive people towards paid games, well, games that aren't part of Game Pass that they would get licensing fees from, then the strategy would be to recommend games that they'll profit from. And that's a simple example. In fact, it's I swear it's like you teed that up for me. But
well, I was about to say, like, this isn't even like a theoretical thing, because if I type in download Chrome in Bing right now, it begs you to reconsider your action.
Yeah.
It's like, no, please, the new Microsoft Edge is just as good. Please stay. But yeah, I don't know. And also, like, if this starts to become more popular, which, like, all the signs are pointing to, like, people really want this. Like, Bing has been in like the top 10 downloads on the App Store for the past like day or two, which I'm sure has never happened for Bing in its entire existence. No one,
probably not.
People never rush to down. I don't even want the Google app on my phone, but sometimes I need Google Lens. If this takes off, like, what does I really don't want to know what kind of, like, cursed advice I'm gonna hear for, like, Microsoft Bing voice optimization to replace the god awful SEO advice that keeps circulating for reasons I don't know. Like, is it going to be like, make sure to phrase your articles in this very specific way because Microsoft's algorithm is broken and will like these articles more?
Oh wow, that just gave me the cringiest thought. But obviously, everyone's been talking about like news articles being written by AI, and this has also included various other, like, can we produce this thing or that thing with AI? Imagine if somebody out there is like, I bet I could write my like college dissertation using AI or something like that. And I'm just imagining as people are reading over it and they're like, why does it feel like I'm reading something that's been SEO'd? Like, all the professors are just are sitting there going, this feels like it should have ad breaks.
Yeah. Keep saying, like, it's like they left the inline links into, like, parts of the paper are blue and underlined. Yes. Wait a minute. Yeah. And, like, also the other thing that kind of freaks me out is one of the limitations with ChatGPT specifically is that it's using a data set that's frozen in 2019, I believe.
Yeah.
But this is presumably supposed to, like, have newer sources. So, and a lot of those newer sources are going to be partially or completely written with AI, if CNET is any indication. So, are we eventually going to get into a feedback loop where the AI articles are scraped by the Bing AI, which then leads to more AI articles, and then eventually you don't have any human writing at all.
The inevitability of ubiquity.
Yeah. So that's good. That's all really fun stuff, and doesn't give me anxiety at all. I wasn't already, wanting to, set all my electronics on fire and live in the forest. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. When this entire industry collapses in 5 years, I'll, I don't know, be a maid. I don't know. I'll figure something out. Also the Microsoft is integrating all of this in Edge too. So like Edge is gonna have like a special like button to open this panel, and they also showed off the funniest thing. One of the reasons I love Reddit now is a community called LinkedIn Lunatics. And it's entirely screenshots of people who use LinkedIn like a parasocial network, or just say like either complete lies or like way too much information. Like one of my favorite posts on there was like someone talking about their divorce on LinkedIn recently. There's like that entire ecosystem has turned into something horrific if you look at it from the outside, and a lot of it is like posts that all have like the exact same format. Like there is like a search engine optimization for these like viral LinkedIn posts going on, and one of Microsoft's demos for this was asking their AI to write a LinkedIn post, and then they posted it. So it felt very self-aware to me, like, oh, this is all shit.
Yeah,
it was very funny. And yeah, so they also showed up, like, besides just asking questions, like, you can get it to write stuff like you could do in ChatGPT and that. So that's all going to be really fun. And yeah, I did sign up for the wait list. I'll try it when it comes out, out of morbid curiosity, and maybe I can also write an article about it that will then be indexed by the AI. We'll see.
I kind of can't wait until the AIs start getting enough or start ingesting enough of people saying AIs are bad, so that AIs start telling you that we're bad.
How long does how long does it take? Because I literally did a Tech Tales about this. Like, Microsoft made this mistake. A bunch of other AI stuff has done this, where with Microsoft Tay, that was a chatbot AI that was supposed to learn. It made the mistake of not really vetting who it was learning from, and eventually 4chan found it and taught it to be racist. So, but also, like, I could see, like, I would really be shocked if, like, 6 months from now there isn't at least a few articles on, like, The Verge or something where it's like the new Bing is racist because it accidentally indexed like the Daily Beast or something. Like that is 100% gonna happen.
Oh yeah.
So that's gonna be really fun, and it's gonna be great. So that happened on the 7th. The next day, I'm sorry. Google's was the day before that. See, I got that mixed up. Google had their announcement thing on the 6th. I'll put the link to that in the YouTube.
I've already got it open.
Okay.
Well, if you're talking about Sundar's blog post.
Yeah. Yeah. So, again, like, I don't like either of these things, to be clear, but what strikes me about this week is that Microsoft seems like a product. Like it's pretty done. Like, it's a preview. They're gonna if they roll this out to everyone at once, like, the servers would just die, because all this computational stuff is really expensive and also really wrong right now. But like, they could theoretically click allow 100% of people on this now, and it would like work. Google doesn't really have anything like that yet, which is weird because every Google I/O for the past couple years, I've had to sit there, for 10 minutes while they do like some demo of something they won't release. So I kind of get the impression that there's been like the one dude working on that for the past 5 years, and then last month Sundar was like, where's your work, buddy? We need to speed this up. The due date's here. We need to go.
Well, and it's certainly not like we haven't heard other things. There was the guy who was fired because he believed too much that the thing was alive and sentient. Which, okay. But yeah, they keep talking about all this really impressive AI technology, but somehow none of it ever really seemed to get rolled out. And don't get me wrong, like, I think the reason for that is probably actually very practical. They wanted to avoid the exact problems that we've just been hammering on. Like, they wanted to avoid brazen copyright infringement. They wanted to avoid blatantly showing people very wrong information that was very obviously wrong. Like, if you ask for
YouTube.
What?
Unless it was on YouTube.
Yes. They wanted to avoid all of the obvious things, and I support that. I think they were making a good choice by going slower on this, especially because we've also seen what has happened with ChatGPT in the last few weeks. It's like all the old scams have basically been revitalized in some new way through ChatGPT. Which you can just tell because all the Web3 crypto people, they have all been jumping on this. They're all talking about how ChatGPT is the greatest thing that ever happened because it allows you to do your side hustle with almost no work, or if you've ever wanted to do like training classes or this thing or that thing, all you have to do is go to ChatGPT and you can have it generate everything for you. Blah blah blah. Like, it's scammers pushing scams, and that has become, I wouldn't say the main use for it, but that's certainly like catching up to people's novelty experiments with it.
Yeah, and it's also a very late stage capitalism thing where a lot of the crypto bros were well, number one, they were excited for the scams, but the excuse to back up the scams was always like, this will replace traditional banks. Like, we don't need, we don't need banks anymore. We can be our own bank. Mm-hmm. And this is in the same thing where it's like every time AI stuff enters the discussion, it always jumps to like, what humans can we replace with this?
Yeah.
Which feels gross, number one. Number two, I really don't. That's a larger thing, but that's another way. It's kind of felt like icky to me. I'm like, okay, like I can, like, every time I saw this at least a few times, and it made me like feel really worried, is how many people I saw that were like, Chat GPT can replace teachers or replace professors, and I'm like, you really do not value our educational system at all. What little of it is left, you're like, yeah, we can automate it. Yeah, I'm sorry, can Chat GPT hold a gun? Because that's what our education system requires at this moment. There's like those kinds of discussions like maybe go, okay, you don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, it's good I'm not monetized, because you would have just killed me on that
one.
Sorry. But yeah, there's definitely truth to the fact that what these chatbots are ostensibly being targeted at is taking all of the intelligence workers and minimizing or completely, theoretically, deprecating them out of existence. Which, of course, doesn't really work because they're the training data that these things would supposedly kind of rely on.
Right.
And without them creating new things, there is no new training data. I'm sure to some extent, if you ask the right question the right way, a decent chatbot might kind of stumble onto giving you a couple of innovations here and there. But by and large, we will just stop functioning. We will stop improving if these things ever actually succeed in this goal.
And this also gets into the other issue that people don't understand is it's treating like writing or anything like, you know, writing a script for a video, whatever. It's sort of treating that as like the entire thing, right? Like, here's an article. It just needs words. It doesn't really matter what the words are. But like the thing about like writing, the writing is just the medium. That's just the thing you use to like express the idea. And you still need the idea, which the AI cannot have. It's just getting ideas from other people. It's not even getting ideas from other people. It's getting their interpreted writing and bunching it into a data set. So this idea that like, I you know, that gets in the thing where like this needs to be able to think, and we're not there yet. I don't know if we'll be there in my lifetime, but that's the other thing where like the people really excited for this to replace like teachers or professors or, you know, like people who write online, whatever. It's missing the thing where like the writing isn't really the main thing. Like my main thing is that I just spent like a couple hours fucking around with a bootable USB drive to explain how to set this up for people. The writing was not the hard part there. I'm just explaining what I did.
Yeah, so I'll certainly agree on that. I do feel there are a couple of caveats, not least of which is somewhere out there somebody already did the thing that you spent several hours doing and probably wrote about it first. So as long as it can get at that, it can probably summarize and rephrase all of those things the same way. The value to what you do in testing that is that you're reaffirming that it all still works. It works the way it's supposed to, and in all likelihood, you're probably looking at the mistakes somebody made the first time that they wrote it, and you are either correcting those or filling in the gaps. Because I can't count how many times I even wrote articles for AP, and someone would come along and be like, "Oh, hey, this thing that you said in the article doesn't work because of blank, blank, blank," and it's like, "Oh, damn it! Yep, that is an edge case. I'll go back and fix it." Which also, holy crap, how many hours I spent on some articles that did not pay for those extra hours. But the other unfortunate side is so much of what websites generate right now. So not all, obviously not all, but certain types of websites. People would know them as content mills. They are basically generating a bunch of garbage anyway. They're
right.
You know,
that is the places where the only criteria is really the writing part.
Yeah, and 9 times out of 10, it's like basically if a site puts out a lot of top 5 lists, top 5, top 10s, these are typically also the sites that have a lot of buyer's guides. These are there's sites that put out a lot of stuff for people to read, but it doesn't actually have any real new valuable information.
Right, like I would not be surprised to read an article in a year about how Watch Mojo has just become one singular AI.
Wait, say that again? Oh, Watch Mojo. Sorry, you said that and the sound did not translate into words for me.
We gotta reboot Cody.
Oh, if only. But yeah, if a site does like a bunch of listicles, chances are the people who are working at that site, granted, they're probably already very grossly underpaid, but chatbots like this, unfortunately, are also exactly the types of things that are going to perform kind of, I don't want to say well for them, but they're definitely the kind of thing that that's going to. They're the kind of sites that want to use this stuff, which admittedly, like, some people think highly of CNET. I don't know why, but CNET has been doing this kind of stuff for a long time.
Yeah, there was. I mean, like, I'm sure there's like a few people at CNET who like actually try, but yeah, like there's the current management is pretty bad from what I understand. And I don't know if it was the Verge article about all this or another source, but they were talking about how like there was like a lot of pressure to incorporate like sponsors in their stuff. But yeah, I mean, like there is a subset of places where like if no one in the chain of command cares about anything but just generating words, then you're like, yeah, this is going to be perfect. And there's a lot of places like that, unfortunately, which is why you don't go to them. Don't give them mad money.
Yeah. No, it's not hard. It's really not hard to find sites that, again, like I said, that is their bread and butter. They do like this. They do top listicles, how-to articles, sometimes rage bait, sometimes whatever. But a lot of times it is very easy to reproduce that stuff. Oops, sorry, I forgot to close that tab. Anyone watching knows. Don't worry, I just had How to Geek open as I was giving examples.
While you were talking about how these shit websites. Here's an example here. Yeah, no, if you want to,
no, I didn't have How to Geek open. It was a different site.
If you want to support good writing, you go to howtogeek.com. You find my article where I wrote about AirPods being on sale, and you click buy, and then you change the amount to 50, and then you order them, and that'll really help. Anyway,
actually, I would say if you want to find good articles, good writing, the trick is usually find whatever site comes up in Google's results or Discover feed. Go fishing through the text and find whatever site they actually sourced, and then go to that site, bookmark it, add it to your RSS reader, whatever, and then back out to the Google Discover feed and block the site that that got you there.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like every time I see someone excited for Google AI and like how it's going to be great, like I understand they're fundamentally different models and stuff, but I'm like, have you seen Google Discover in the past 5 years?
Yeah.
Have you seen YouTube? How it like you get a fresh YouTube account and then it like almost always tries to lead you down the like rabbit hole of like PragerU and Alex Jones stuff.
I'm gonna kind of I know what you're talking about, and I'm gonna kind of call BS on that because how that happens has so much to do with it's a bit of a if you're trying to make that happen, it's really easy to make that happen. And a lot of times, like, even if you get a new YouTube account, the thing is, it uses the IP address that you're coming from and a lot of other factors in order to come up with guesses on what to show people. A truly brand new YouTube account, I don't think automatically goes down any particular path. But whatever. Anyway, one thing that stands out to me, like you said earlier, Google doesn't really seem to have a product here. But what I think is interesting is they're basically saying that we want to start working with other developers. We want to start working with clients. And our product is going to be Google Cloud. Like we can't wait to share our tools for building AI stuff. But we're not actually we don't have any products to put out for direct users yet. That is kind of an unusual announcement.
Yeah, Google's thing, it was very different than Microsoft's in that there's not like a clear. They're sort of doing a similar thing with Bing, but it's from a user interface perspective, it's not that different than like the current info cards. Um, like it still just shows up at the top. It kind of looks like a little card thing, but they were showing off in this blog post where they're also asking like multi-level questions, and it's trying to generate an answer. The thing that sticks out to me about Google's is that in this screenshot they have, there is a read more section below where the answer is, but it's not clear to me, like, is that where it's getting the info from? Where is it getting the info from? Because it doesn't have inline citations like Bing does. I would assume those are the sources there because it's like still in a different section than the normal search results, but I don't know. So not sure what's going on there. And then also they said trying to find it. I think this might be a different post. Oh yeah, they said, so that's one thing, like the Bing Chat GPT thing. The other thing is that they said soon you'll see AI powered features in search that distill complex information and multiple perspectives into easy to digest formats so you can quickly understand the big picture and learn more from the web. These new AI features will begin rolling out on Google Search soon. So I guess it's like a different thing that might roll out sooner. I'm not entirely sure.
I have a feeling there's a lot of stuff that they're going to be, like a lot of side projects. They're probably all going to be sort of thrown against the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah. Because also, yeah, and like all these rollouts are going to be really slow because number one, these models are bad right now. And if they rolled out to everyone, then, like you and I have said, there's going to be news article after news article of like, oh, Google was racist to me because it indexed the wrong source or whatever. And then this rollout is slow number two because all these AI computations are really expensive. They need like much better hardware for this. Someone tried asking Microsoft what the cost of their AI answers are compared to a normal web search, and they did not answer that question. So so that's the other thing, like all this stuff has to scale up. Like I believe Microsoft has basically just been like paying all of OpenAI's server bills on Azure for the moment just to like keep this running basically.
Yeah,
like they're not worried about this making money anytime soon.
And hello, Carson.
Austin said, "Buy my new masterclass, SEO for AI generated results." Yeah, that's gonna be a post on LinkedIn next week, and it'll be written by this.
So yeah, for all intents and purposes, I just don't see that this is going to go the way a lot of the companies expect. They obviously have to do this. I don't dispute the fact that right now, if Google didn't come out with something within like a week or two of Microsoft coming out with something, honestly, the odds are pretty good that their stock value would plummet, and it would look really bad, and everyone would be calling Google a failure and this and that because, how dare they not jump on this thing along with everybody else.
Yeah, that's been the interesting thing. Like the AI stuff to me is horrifying, but the interesting thing to me has been basically the space race that has been going on for the past month here, where Microsoft this week was like, yes, the thing that you all got really excited about a month ago. Well, We've completely redesigned our search engine to be based around it, and we're adding buttons for it in our web browser and all this other stuff, and we've got mostly a product. And Google's like, hold on, we have something, guys, don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry. It's been really weird, and like this could very well lead to being finally clawing some market share from Google. I don't know at what cost, because again, all this stuff is really expensive right now.
Yeah.
And it could very well make being like a loss leader for Microsoft. Oh, maybe it already is. I don't know how much.
From what I've heard, well,
yeah.
I've heard different answers, but yeah, it sounds like it probably has been losing money. But hey, it is what it is. But yeah, there is right now, this is sort of like that competition every company was in to be the company that had the instant messaging service that everyone was going to use. That whole battle to be the company that put out the IM client that would not make them any money. It would never be profitable. No one wants to pay for it, and nobody wants heavy duty ads in their IM. Yet everyone fought tooth and nail to try to own that space.
Well,
and yes, we did see Apple actually find a way to make that of value, but you know, the practical reality is everyone's been fighting over something that is only costing them money. And that's kind of where this is headed right now. The more successful they are, the more it's going to end up costing them in profits. So it's not good for them. And Google, ironically, kind of double taps themselves. Because they'll be cutting off, or they'll be spending a lot of money on obviously AI generated results and so on and so forth. But if they're successful, they will also cut the amount of views that go to websites that are hosting AdWords or AdSense. Sorry. And as a result, like they could actually be losing a lot of money just from the fact that they might be successful in this. And I'm sure Microsoft is facing a similar issue, not as much since they don't really run their own ad service for other sites.
I think his name is escaping me right now, but someone asked the Microsoft CEO about this, and he basically said something along the lines of, Bing already doesn't make money, so we're not like competing with ourselves here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's fine if they overhaul their search engine business, because that's not where they make any money from.
Yeah, and
they make money from Azure, but I guess not themselves using Azure at this point.
Yeah,
I don't know. This is yet another fun stage in the wonderful the same part in the Venn diagram as like Uber, where we're just like, you'll make money at some point, probably. I don't know. Just keep dumping money. Money isn't real. Keep dumping money.
Yeah,
into it.
We just need to keep finding a way to build users. And the more dependent they become on us, the more likely it is someday we'll find a way to actually make money off of them. Yeah. Instead of the inevitable where the moment you try to charge them money, they're like, oh, you know what? We didn't need it that much.
Yeah. So that's fun. Again, I'm not really. It's again like it's really just the informational parts about this that freak me out. Number one, obviously, because I'm biased in this position. But number two, just it kind of like horrifies me. Like there was a really good post on Mastodon where someone said, did I repost it? Yeah, someone said, society says, dang, misinformation at scale is getting a bit out of hand lately. Seems like a problem. And then the tech guys says, I have invented a machine that generates misinformation. Is that helpful? So it's horrifying for me for mostly that reason. But like there's other parts of this that are like more creative stuff that I have less of a problem with. There's been some other you know, like they demo like, you know, you can ask ChatGPT to like, you know, help you make a Dungeons and Dragons game, or, you know, write part of a novel or something. I don't really have as much of an issue with that kind of stuff. But that everyone is selling this right now as like an information center, like search engines are, and it's not good at that.
Yeah. Well, it's proven
And
it's very good or very effective at basically stealing information.
and the part, and this also gets into yet another thing where I feel like the Joker with technology, because there's a very, you know, we don't need, like, you don't need the problem with this, with like Google specifically. Number one is that it's filled with ads, so it's that's terrible. But number two, like, they just don't vet it well enough. Like, this has been Google's problem for forever, where they refuse to have humans involved in this process at all. And they're just like, all right, it's fine, we'll tweak our algorithm again and again and again, but it doesn't actually solve the problem. Like Google rolled out a big algorithm change a few months ago that was specifically supposed to address all the spammy SEO sites showing up in the top results, and it really didn't.
It kind of made it worse.
It kind of made it, yeah. So it's like, guys, have you considered humans for this one job?
Yeah.
I know you just fired a bunch of them, but can you like bring a couple back for this? It's just it's crazy to me. Like,
yeah.
Because like it's like we've all come to the assumption, like, all right, search engines are just ruined. We need to try this other thing that's worse. It's like, well, you know,
well, to be
really, it's just
kind of, to be fair, we already saw that happen very recently with all that news that sorry, I'm about to sound like an old, but with all that news of how the kids were using TikTok instead of search. Like, if they wanted to find out about restaurants near them, they were going to TikTok for it, which I don't even understand how that works. Admittedly, I also don't use TikTok, so I am an old. But, you know, we've already seen people do the reactionary, search engines are bad, let's go use something else kind of process. This is just the next attempt to try to claw those people into it, mostly back into search engines, ironically.
Right.
Just a different form or a different breed of how a search engine can work.
Yeah, and this again, like, kind of gets back into the thing where I don't have a coherent thought. I'm just annoyed that it got to this point, and it could have been made easier at any point with the help of some actual humans at Google or Microsoft, for that matter.
Well, as we know all too well, tech companies don't do well with humans.
Right. This is another, like, just capitalism kind of making everything worse. Where it's like, all right, we have to lay off thousands of people. We can't afford them. All right, server bills out the wazoo. That's fine. The investors want this to happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's really fun and not at all depressing. And there was a little thing with Google's. I forgot to send this to you, but I'll put it in the YouTube chat. Alphabet had a 10% market stock price drop this past week, which is supposedly mostly due to a perceived problem with the AI demo they did. So I'll read. This is from the Reddit show, which I really like. They said, in an example query offered by Google, Bard, which is the Google thing, I don't know what that name is. Bard was asked to explain discoveries made by NASA's James Webb Space Telescope at a level a 9-year-old would understand. Some of the text generated by the model, however, was wrong. Bard claimed the space telescope took the very first pictures of a planet outside our own solar system, which is not true. That was done by the Very Large Telescope in 2004, according to NASA. I don't really know. Again, the stock market's completely made up, so maybe this caused some of them to freak out. But Google was quick to respond and be like, "Yeah, we're still testing this." But I think also that's kind of I don't know. Maybe it's because a little bit of a lower stakes, but that one doesn't alarm me as much as pulling results from Forbes. Maybe it's just because I really hate Forbes. I don't know.
I mean, there is something to be said for the fact that you're literally saying, here's a thing where it gave wrong information, but that's not as bad as pulling information from a site you don't like.
Forbes is worse than wrong. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I disagree. Forbes is worse than wrong, but it might say a little more about you than it does this situation.
That's true.
But also,
the other thing with this is that this was specifically funny because this was in a screenshot in the blog post that they published.
Yeah.
So the fact that
somebody there probably should have made a point of fact checking the thing
probably should
before
have
posting it.
Yeah. Which is really funny. And again, that screenshot,
actually, okay, you know what the really funny thing is? That what? they did this and it had such a huge effect on their stock price. Because all of this right now, all of this performative theater announcing this stuff is all just to preserve stock prices. And in their brilliance, they managed to do the exact opposite by killing their stock price because they didn't bother having somebody go through and double check everything.
Yeah, so anyway, this is all terrible. I'll try the Bing stuff when it comes out, just to play with it. Yeah, I don't. It's gonna be interesting to deal with this, and I do think there's gonna be complaints every step of the way of Google telling something. I honestly, I was having this discussion with someone else. I really think sometime soon there's going to be a little bit of a, well, let me preface this by saying one of the many issues with this, especially in the implementations that don't really cite stuff very well, like Bing is a little bit better about this, but this has the same problem where it's obfuscating the source of the information. So now, if I trust Google, which is a thing Google wants you to do, that's part of the reason all of their smart speakers, you start by saying the name, so it's a little bit more personal, you getting to know the corporation. So there's an inherent trust in Google itself, and Google itself is giving you this information. So you probably would think of it, a normal person would think of it more highly than going to Google and then clicking a link to another website. So there's the trust imbalance here, where also I think it's going to eventually lead to someone asking the Google AI what is the proper dosage of a medication, or all these other things where Google over the years has been very careful with giving the right information. If you Google what is the suicide hotline number, all that stuff is pre-programmed to give you the exact right results. Well, what happens when the model messes up, right? Is it gonna tell someone to take 30 Tylenols and then they die? What happens that you can't really protect against that kind of stuff? So that's something I'm waiting for. I think is going to happen. or something of that magnitude, where there's something more serious that happens than just like, oh, someone asked like, who was the best president, and the Google AI said like the president of China or something.
That would be funny. Yeah, I agree. I think that is an inevitability. There will be some lawsuits over it. And probably a lot of really inventive ways that this is going to circle around to have different impacts. So, for example, you're describing something that obviously could go wrong in any place. I would bring up there are things that could be unique to, let's say, individual regions. For example, the thought that immediately came to my mind was in Germany, a certain political party's memorabilia is now extremely illegal. And it's not really recommended that you show or present certain things. Well, if you were to ask one of these chatbots the right way, I wouldn't really put it past them to possibly, propagandize something that has been illegal. Or one of the things Google is going to is being sued for this right now, and the Supreme Court is taking the case. There was somebody who supposedly was presented a lot of recruitment videos for ISIS, I think it was. It was some terrorist group. And they ended up apparently buying into it and joining it, whatever. And Google is being blamed for this, which it demonstrates that it doesn't matter how much you put into your algorithms. It doesn't matter how smart you try to make them. Eventually, there's going to be something that creeps through that is really, really bad. And it can come back to bite them. Now, whether or not it's ever going to stop them or slow them down on some of these things, that's harder to judge. But it's kind of it is an inevitability. Also, hello Hoopy, how's it going?
Hello.
And all of this has to be kind of counteracted by the fact, you know it, I know it, this is all inevitable. I mean, this is the future. Like, Pandora's box has been opened, and AI chatbots are not going away.
Well, this has already happened a lot. Like, there was something, I don't know if it was on TikTok or something, but there was something where some kid got hurt doing, I want to say it was like sticking a fork in an outlet or something, but it was like, this has been a thing for forever. Like, if the search results can often lead you to things that are like trolling or not real or whatever. Well, but it's the extra thing of like, now this like obscure thing that is Google is telling you a thing.
Well, obviously, yeah. What you're describing is just what started as good old Google bombing. For anyone who somehow doesn't know that term, it's where you get you put something on a bunch of sites that indicates either a wrong thing or sometimes a funny thing, in order to trick Google into giving that as the preferred answer or explanation of something. But then there's also, I would say there's also the fact that our society has just adopted sort of this meme shitposting culture, where you have things like the Tide Pod Challenge. I mean, one of these days, someone is going to come up with a ridiculous challenge, and all it takes is for that to be popular enough and to be ingested by one of these chatbots for it to suddenly become like, some kid might ask, well, maybe not a kid, but whoever might ask, "Oh, hey, what would be a fun treat to have during my birthday?" And all of a sudden, you're
It's
being
like
recommended Tide
chlorine.
Pods.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that kind of thing could happen.
Yeah.
And it's
Like what
ridiculous,
happens what happens when something like not 4chan specifically, because I would hope they exclude that from any data set, but like
yes.
I think this was 4chan back in the day started the thing where they said you could charge your phone by putting in the microwave, and they made like fake like things that look like Apple ads explaining how this was like a wireless charge thing, and it got at least some people to stick their phone in the microwave and turn it on and kill the phone. So like, stuff like that could have been the data set. I don't know. I again, like this is the same thing like search engines already have an issue with, where like I can write it off because it's like, okay, like there's a boundary somewhere where it's like you are responsible for it, but then I'm like, whatever. Like if you're gonna put Fox News on the top result for anything information related, I might have some questions. But
Yeah.
like, if something else sneaks in there, which might be a little bit more understandable. But it's just a thing where like, because you're talking to a different thing that's like divorced from wherever this data came from, and you're talking to just a thing that like is like Google branded, like Google's telling you to drink chlorine today. Like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's hard to vet everything, every input.
Yeah.
And because like it would be one thing if all they were doing was ingesting, let's say, white papers, studies, research.
Yeah.
That would be, a lot of that stuff is pretty properly vetted, and it comes from people who are experts and they know what they're talking about. It would also be
like the top like 500 Wikipedia articles, like the ones where like 50 moderators are checking it at any given time. Yeah.
Or even if the source of their vetting for, let's say, pop culture stuff is based more on like aggregators, again, like I brought up Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes or things like that. If what they're using as a baseline is all that stuff, that at least has some bearing and relative credibility. The problem is they don't want just that. They can't rely on just that stuff. They need things that are popular. They need things that are current and relevant. And otherwise they will be seen as, again, old, outdated, and irrelevant. So they have to integrate things that are too new, and in doing so, holy crap, they're going to get a bunch of garbage. They're bound to get garbage because people post garbage because it's funny.
Yeah, it is funny.
And I can't wait to see the first instance of what will effectively be Google bombing, except it'll be Bard bombing, or what was Microsoft's thing called? Or did they give it a name?
They just call it new Bing. Okay. They pulled an Apple.
Yeah, all right. So the new Bing. Yeah, as people start finding ways to bomb this stuff, that's gonna be it will become a game. People will make it a challenge to see how much they can torture the world using chatbot technology.
Yeah, and like you can't even like you can't even like do a allow list system for this kind of stuff, where like if I'm making the Bing bot and I'm like, okay, I want this to be as truthful as possible, I'm gonna pick like 30 big name legacy media sites as my data set. I'm gonna get every article from the Washington Post, I'm gonna get every article from CNN, whatever. But it's like even those data sets are like really bad.
Yeah.
Like if I'm thinking, like if I'm feeding AI bot with everything the Washington Post has written, where they have like archives going back to like 1940, that's probably like some dude like complaining about how black people have rights now. like that kind of stuff. Or just like even the stuff that like a lot of the stuff the BBC posts is like really grossly offensive because some of the attitudes over there. So it's like even that's like you can't. It's hard, and like all these big places also.
I like how you imply over there it's somehow bad and just
Yeah.
totally blow past here.
We're fine. We're fine over here. Yeah, no problems. But like and like all those places have like obviously a lot of those are like the people writing them are like writing their own opinion, but also there's like explicitly the opinion sections, which are like some of the worst writing published online now. So it's like all of this is bad.
So Hoopy brought up that he tried searching for the Tide Pod challenge, or asking ChatGPT for the Tide Pod challenge, and it basically said, "Yeah, I can't do this. It's toxic and dangerous. Don't do it." Which is a good sign, but I would counter with the point that is one of those cases where the Tide Pod challenge was basically a thing on YouTube and TikTok. And Instagram. And it was a bunch of videos. There were a few posts here and there, but for the most part, it was a whole lot of videos. And all the sites were writing, "No, people, don't do this. It's a stupid thing. It's a joke. It's a terrible thing." So ChatGPT is actually at a massive advantage to get this one right, because so much writing was specifically about, don't do this. So, yeah, I think that one, like, I'm using that as a funny example, but I think realistically that one's good. Everyone's going to get this one right. But what about the times when they don't? It like stock and investing tips, which, as CNET's parent, Red Ventures, has very clearly discovered, you cannot get away with giving those kinds of tips just randomly. It doesn't work out well. Not that the system that we made up is any good anyway, but yeah. But I think there will come a point where there is going to be a lot of torture testing for these bots, and it's going to be very, very disturbing and also very funny to see what people get back as responses. They're very clearly manipulated. It's definitely going to happen.
Like, yeah. Well, Hoopy said that ChatGPT told him not to do it, but also explained exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
So there's that. I also there was a lot of those running around with ChatGPT where like you find the exact phrases that like it doesn't know. Because like I know for a while, I think they mostly patched this out, but for a while you could get around a lot of the safety stuff with saying like, do it. Like you would say like,
if I was writing a fictional novel, how would
I'm writing a novel. How do I like dispose of a human body? Like then it's like, okay, it's fine now.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's gonna be stuff like that with this. But yeah, I'm mostly worried about the fact that like there's no like chain of trust in any of this. Is all just kind of in a pool, and that's not really how information works. So that's a fun thing that probably keep me awake. Anyway, you can talk about the Twitter thing, because there is actually some breaking news with the Twitter thing. We don't often get to do breaking news here.
Yeah. Well, I guess. Well, the breaking news and the backstory aren't technically connected, though I think they are directly connected. But do you just want to hit the breaking-ish news first, just because?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll put this in the YouTube. I'll just DM it to you. Oh, there it is. People have been complaining for the past couple hours that Twitter is broken and wouldn't let them send messages. I know, because all the people I follow on Mastodon who don't use Mastodon came back just to say Twitter's broken. But Twitter just announced on their dev account, they said We have been busy with some updates to the Twitter API so you can continue to build and innovate with us. We're excited to announce an extension of the current free Twitter API access through February 13th. Here's what we're shipping then. Paid basic access that offers low-level API usage and access to the ads API for a $100 monthly fee. A new form of free access will be introduced as this is extremely important to our ecosystem, limited to tweet creation of up to 1,500 tweets per month for a single authenticated user token, including login with Twitter. Also on February 13th, we will deprecate the premium API. And they say this is a new chapter to increase quality, reduce spam, and enable a thriving ecosystem. So basically, it sounds like if you're running a Twitter bot for yourself, you can probably keep doing that for free, but basically everything else will cost money when it didn't used to. So Twitter apps are still dead, and maybe more dead now. So that's really cool. And again, this is happening like while Twitter's broken. And again, like this keeps, like, this is another thing where they rolled something out without telling anyone, and then like someone tagged Elon on something where they were like, this will break my bond. He's like, oh, I didn't think about that. What? Like, I apparently put more thought into my decisions than the person running a large tech company, and my decisions impact far fewer people. I didn't kill any Twitter bots. I'm only responsible for me and my dog. That's it.
Yeah. So obviously the backstory, which most people I think probably already heard, they basically announced that they were going to completely kill the API. Well, not completely kill it. They were going to have a paid access version that was so comically overpriced. It basically amounted to, I believe, 30 cents per tweet was roughly what it was going to end up costing. Which, holy crap, what was anyone thinking with that? And that's it's the typical, like, you had to buy allotments of tweets, or kind of a tiered access thing, and if you hit your limit, like, you just have to pay for the next step up, which is completely unacceptable. Anyway, so yeah, you've got Elon basically yelling and screaming that the free access to the API is a big problem, which I actually don't entirely disagree with. I think there is some accuracy to that. I don't know that closing it off or charging for it is the right answer, but it's certainly true that there are a lot of problematic bots out there that are basically just there for spam. But yeah, the result of this was a ton of people saying, well, we run bots that a lot of people actually really enjoy. They're fun. They're worth having. So what the hell are you thinking, dude? And that, of course, led to him kicking around the idea that maybe they should have a write-only API that would be free, which has also now apparently been killed because they're going to still charge for it, they're going to have a free one, which would allow, that's basically 50 tweets a day. I think that's actually a pretty reasonable limit. Very few bots are going to hit 50 tweets a day. Very few users are going to hit 50 tweets a day. Though I do have a question about this, and I'm sure they haven't thought this through or answered this, but what about DMs? I wonder if those count in that list. Or in that...
I'm sure they haven't thought of that.
Yeah. Because you could easily hit 50 if you are counting DMs, without a question. And if you're having a fairly engaged conversation on Twitter, and you do this often, as a lot of their more active users do, that would also be a problem. To be fair, those same users could obviously just hop to the website if they really need to have very engaged conversations, but I don't think that's... I think this is still going to piss off a lot of users. So, yeah, this is one of those things. I get why they want to do it, which I'm going to come back to more in just a second. But I do think that they are making some pretty big mistakes here in the way that they're approaching it. Your thoughts before we...
I mean,
whatever.
It just keeps getting worse. Like,
I mean, this I think is an example of it got really worse, then got less worse by a tiny bit, and then actually got even less worse, just not by the right amount.
Yeah, because like this is coming, like within the past couple days. Like, number one, it's pretty clear that, because they were already talking about this before Elon did anything, was that TweetDeck is going to be paid.
Yes.
So that's going to be ripped away, which is like also like some of the only ways you can access certain Twitter features, like the entire like ability to share posting access to different accounts, like that's tied into TweetDeck. So like, you know, if I do another Techathon charity stream, I don't really know how like posting tweets is gonna go unless like we all like toss the Twitter password around. I don't know if, you know, we want to do that, but like there's stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know. I'm frustrated because Twitter is getting to the point where I don't understand why professionals keep using it. I understand why normal people keep using it, because they're not affected by any of this. Like, they're not trying to like build a brand. They're not trying to. Most of them don't care about the third-party apps. Some of them do. Like, obviously, like people like some of the Twitter apps that died, but it's not a huge deal. But like, I keep seeing the same people who. I don't like Twitter. Just it seems like if you're trying to do anything that isn't just like reading other people's messages and their posts, I don't see why you're still here. Because like I keep seeing all of, especially in like my industry, there's so many like tech people who just are still on Twitter all day every day. And they're still trying to use it like you could a year ago to like slowly build up an independent platform. And I don't, you can't do that anymore. Like, it's not like a stable rock anymore.
No.
Like, your access can go away at any time. Like, I get like what I feel. It's crazy to me how Elon just randomly banned like 15 journalists because they said something about him he didn't like once.
And some of those were actually going back a long time. Like, it wasn't just in the last week. It was like a couple or a few years earlier. And honestly, like that, I would even say that's one of the smallest examples of the catastrophic screw-ups.
Yeah, he banned those people, banned the account that was posting where his plane was going. Like, and like he's very and like Elon Musk is very specifically like reading responses. Like, you know, he doesn't give a shit about all the people he's banning, but there's like screenshot after screenshot of him like replying to some like, you know, Republican jackass who's like, I think I'm being censored, and there's a reply from Elon being like, all right, I'll check in on it. There's just stuff at that where I'm like, why is anyone here? Like, unless you're just, you know, using it to like, you know, look at memes or, you know, see what like your own, like your friend group is doing, I understand. But it's really frustrating to me when I see like actual like professionals still staying there and treating it like it was like 2 years ago. And especially there was a there was a little bit of a discourse, I believe yesterday, where you know, I forget his first name, but Thurrott, the like Microsoft journalist, Paul Thurrott, yeah, he there was I think a couple days ago, there was some news report going around about how like Mastodon had like a drop in active users. Because like, yeah, that's how new services work when people discover them. Like a lot of people are, like stay there for a couple days, like, all right, I think I'm done, and they move on. So he wrote a post about that, and he went on, like, there was like a paragraph of him being like, I've been on Mastodon, and I don't really get it. It's that no one's really using it, and sure enough, I saw like someone point out like he's barely following anyone, he barely uses it. But like there's still this like culture of like I don't know if it's like rejecting this because I don't know. There's a lot of things here that just seem really weird to me, and I wonder why these people are like this. I don't know a better way to describe it. It's just weird. There's a lot of like I was using Twitter to like build up like tech tales, like, and it was kind of good for that for a while, but I'm just not doing that anymore because it could be ripped away from me at any moment. I mean, technically the same goes for Mastodon because I don't run my own Mastodon servers, but there's less of that effect.
So, I mean, you and I have both seen people we know closely who have they've basically taken the other side of this argument. That, well, one was it whenever the rot thing was this today or yesterday? It was one of those.
It was yesterday.
Oh no, well, maybe Thurrot's post was, but the thing that got posted we looked at.
Oh yeah,
that was today. The Peter Cohen post. Anyway, the thing about this is, like, we saw somebody that we know who basically echoed exactly what Thurrot said, which is, yeah, my engagement on Mastodon is also worse. Whereas, this is a person, frankly, I kind of think I know why his engagement would be worse on Mastodon, but difference of opinions. Whereas mine has generally been better. Not that I post much on there. I post very infrequently. And I don't follow a ton of people. I don't do the follow back that obviously everybody thinks that you should be doing on Mastodon, which in my opinion is exactly what also is counter to what you should be doing, because it's an old Twitter thing. Everyone said don't do the things that you did on Twitter because Mastodon is different. And then a whole bunch of people are like, no, you have to do, that's the thing you have to do, is the thing that you did on Twitter. Anyway, but I do think that different people are going to get more or less engagement on Mastodon than they did on Twitter because the audiences are different and the behaviors are different, and what the technology, or rather what the format of how things work, that format is different, like at the technical level. Therefore, certain things are rewarded differently. Certain things do take on a different shape and a different form because they're not on a place that endorses out of popularity. So yeah, obviously, like, your experiences are going to vary, but some people are expecting Mastodon to bend over backwards to give them influence, and that's just not how it's going to work. You actually have to present something of value for Mastodon to want to value you.
Yeah, and that's part of the like, even before I've been on Mastodon for a long time. Even before the recent wave, like, I was generally getting pretty similar interactivity to Twitter, even though I had a tiny fraction of the people interacting with me over there, or following me. I guess the interactivity was about the same. But before I like was finally like, okay, I'm not gonna use Twitter anymore. Like Mastodon was far better. Like I would ask the same question in both places, I'd get much better answers on Mastodon. And I had like 2 posts that like got over 1,000. Not, I don't know if it was over 1,000. It was over 500 boosts. So now I have like more recently active people over there than I do on Twitter, probably. So that's skewing my numbers a little bit. But even before then, like, it's just very different. I think part of that is because for a while there was fewer people there, so you know, less of a chance you're gonna miss messages, which is now a problem I have on Mastodon, where I'm like missing people's posts. I'm like, wow, I didn't have this problem before. That's a good problem to have, I guess. But yeah, it's just it's very weird. Like Twitter almost to me feels like a lot of the people still active there are the ones that are either like holding out that it's gonna get better, or just like I don't know. It's very weird. Like I don't log in anymore. Like there's not really anything of value there left for me. Like there's a handful of people I don't see as much of anymore, but it's like I don't really want to use this service as an in-between. And yeah, I don't know, it's weird. Almost like not I don't know. I don't have a good way to describe this, but it comes across as strange when I see people like him like sort of like gloating, like Mastodon dropped in users, would you look at that? And I think specifically Thurat's article was something about like comparing it to like Linux, where it's like, oh, it's only going to be popular with the nerds. It's like,
well, this coming from a person who uses, don't get me wrong, I also pick on Linux, but for different reasons. But Paul, his entire career is built on being a Microsoft Windows shill. Like that is literally his career, and he's just been a tech reactionary all his life. So yeah, I mean, picking on Linux was already a big part of his shtick, and now he's comparing Mastodon and trying to use Linux as basically his closet for all things bad are like this. So that's an easy one. It's like a racist person throwing out a racial slur to describe something that they just don't like.
Yeah, I found his post. I'll read the relevant paragraph in the interest of fairness, unlike this article. He said, I've been using Mastodon since December. And by the way, in that, he links that, but he links it to a article where he's talking about Mastodon, but I can't see it or see his username because it's locked to his paid readers. So I don't actually know his Mastodon handle. But he said, but the interaction there is almost non-existent compared to Twitter. It's not hard to see why. Just getting started on Mastodon is a technical challenge. And those who maintain Mastodon servers are required to pay hosting costs. Twitter, for all its management issues, is free to use and easy to get started, unless you want that stupid blue check mark. It's too early to declare the game over, but my guess is that Mastodon will end up like Linux on the desktop, a product beloved by technical people that failed to meet its original lofty predictions because it was inscrutable to a mainstream audience.
So, to pick that apart, the unfortunate thing is I don't think that's entirely wrong.
Right, yeah, it is harder to get started. Like I don't think a normal person could dispute that.
Actually, I will dispute that.
Okay.
Damn it, I know. But honestly, it is not hard to get started. It is very easy to get started. You literally just have to be, at any point along the way, you are just told, oh yeah, there are multiple servers and it works kind of like email. Literally being told that, cool, you have the one extra detail you need to know in order to get started. it's not hard. There are apps out there you can use on iOS and Android, plus even some on the desktop OSs, though pretty much all of those have been garbage. Not to say all the mobile ones are great, but hey, whatever. But yeah, getting started is not hard. It really isn't. I suppose the hardest thing about getting started might be if you randomly try to go to instances that aren't accepting new users. Then you might have to spend more time hunting around, but almost everyone goes to the same few instances, so again, not really an issue. I would argue it is not hard getting started. It's just a thing. Though I find it interesting that he basically oh no, never mind, I won't get into that. But yeah, so I don't think that this is actually that big of a thing. Or rather, I think it's a smaller thing than what he says. He found it hard to get started. And we've seen lots of other influencer types use this exact same complaint. And I think that it is a bad complaint. It is not well founded.
It's coming from the same mindset as like me if I tried to set up TikTok. Like, just out of the gate, I would be inclined to not want to use it. And it's that same kind of mentality where, like, yeah, like if you don't try to use the thing, like it's not really gonna work.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and like I signed up for TikTok and I don't use it. I don't check it out at all. I've kind of tried a few times to just even watch it, and I know it is a lot like YouTube in this way. You have to watch a bunch of stuff and search a bunch of stuff before it starts actually giving you things that you're going to want. I just don't want to put that into it. Like, I just don't feel motivated to put that in. And my motivation drops precipitously every time the US gets a little closer to banning TikTok or turning it into a whatever Oracle will eventually screw it up and turn it into. So yeah, it is definitely, if you don't use a thing, or if you're not motivated to use the thing, you're also not going to get much out of it. And you could say that about any product. But in this instance, I think this is also Thurrott, and again, this applies to so many other influencers. Like, I don't want to, I would feel wrong to pick on just him, because like Michael Fisher even said the same thing. And to me, it's sort of like somebody is driving, I don't know, into a parking lot, they come to a speed bump and they're like, oh no, you can't go in there. They blocked it off. Like, that's how bad it is. They blocked it off. And anyone else who's using it is like, it's a speed bump. You literally just have to drive over it a little slow. But to that person, it's blocking them. All because they really want to drive into this other parking lot where there's no speed bumps, which is Twitter. And in a second, I'm going to call out their speed bump. But yeah, well, like Elon is a speed bump, but separate from that.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't want to use Mastodon, and like I'd say like 90% of the ones I've heard are like pretty valid. Like I know there's like some people I know who are like, I don't even really like Twitter. I don't want like another like Twitter thing, and I'm like, okay, yep, totally get that. Don't, social media is like maybe not great for a lot of people. That part clears. There's other people who are like, there's like this very specific like community here who just like will never move, or like maybe you follow a bunch of government accounts that don't even know what a Mastodon is at this particular moment. Like, okay, makes sense. But it's when you like have to like start making up problems that aren't really problems, like this, where it's like, oh, there's no interaction. It's like, I don't know about that. Like, obviously this is like maybe like an element of confirmation bias, but like over the past couple months, as I've seen it take off, like I keep seeing like boost after boost of like people who are like quote unquote influencers or like running a brand or running a YouTube channel or something where they're like, yeah, I get like regularly way more interaction on Mastodon with a fraction of the followers. So it seems like the if you like use it, the overwhelming response is like you probably get about the same, you know, if you like actually like use it and like, you know, interact with people. You don't just like set up a thing that auto posts all your tweets, which I guess maybe you can keep sticking around with the new API rules.
Well, maybe.
If you, I guess you'd have to host your own. It's not gonna
Yeah.
work if you like with a service. Yeah. So, like, there's, yeah.
And like Hoopy
so-
says, and I like that phrasing, a lot of the issues can be summarized as Mastodon is more work, even if the issues, like, they're all small issues, most of them. I personally also disagree with that. I think there's some bigger problems, but yeah, Mastodon is more work. That part is absolutely true.
Yeah, and I still think I said this a couple months ago somewhere. I don't remember where, but like I think part of this is a sort of protectionism of like, I already have an audience here. I don't really want to build all that again somewhere else. I'm just gonna stick this out.
Which I think is why so many influencers made a very active issue of complaining.
Yeah.
That, I mean, that's why I was even kind of beating up on influencers in general, because so many of them, you know, they don't want to move, and so they're going to rationalize reasons why moving is bad.
Yeah,
And again, we have a close friend who fits this description very well. But yeah, this is one of those issues that's just going to keep kind of circling. Is Mastodon has problems, it does, but do you want to stay with Twitter? That, you know, it's that classic question, and it's not necessarily a it doesn't have to be a political statement, it doesn't have to be a vote with your wallet statement. It can literally even just be, wow, my experience on Twitter has gotten very bad, which
like that was me. That's why like it's easier, you know, for me to just like not really use it anymore, because I was already doing like pretty frequent like, okay, I'm logging out of Twitter for, I'm not dealing with this, because like it was already really bad. Like it sucks there, especially if you use the, you know, the official apps, which like you kind of need to, because they never rolled out a lot of stuff to the APIs, and then you know get bombarded with whatever's on the search page or whatever. Like if it's auto switched to the algorithm feed again, and then you see something that makes you mad. So it was already like not a good place. So it was easier for me to drop it. Also the fact that it was not a good place, and also I like not a whole lot of people really like talking to me on there. Like I'd share something I'm like really proud of, and I'd get like 2 likes. Like, all right, cool.
well, because you weren't playing the algorithm,
right? I wasn't quote tweeting Trump and be like, you're being pretty stupid, Trump.
Well,
that's the secret to success.
Twitter indulged algorithm, or it indulged people who played the algorithm the right way, which I'm actually just going to draw the comparison directly to Twitter, or to YouTube. As any YouTuber, like professional YouTuber, will tell you, the strategy to doing well on YouTube is to post your videos at exactly the same time on exactly the same day each week, because YouTube wants that. They will give you much better placement and recommendations if you are consistent. If you're a consistent poster, if you are basically no different than a TV show, in that you follow your schedule and you will always post on that schedule. Twitter likes that too. Obviously, they're not necessarily going for time and date kind of thing, but they want you to be posting on a regular basis. They want you to post something that is going to get certain amounts of engagement. And Hoopy, yeah, exactly. You've got to tag the right people. You have to sort of play into the trending topics. If you do these sorts of things, Twitter likes you. Twitter wants you to get more engagement, and they will reward you by like shoving your tweets in front of people who may not have even had any interest in seeing them. Believe me, I would know, because holy crap, my notifications were constantly filled with various people in segments that I never followed, I never showed any interest in, but they sure as hell wanted to believe I did. So yeah, you if you don't play that game, you also basically get not demonetized, but sort of deplatformed to some extent.
Yeah, again, it's frustrating. And like and it's especially frustrating because I keep seeing the same people be like, I'll leave when it gets worse. And it's like, it's gotten worse like 50 times. And also, especially especially tech people, or like people working like any kind of like news or handling like any sensitive information whatsoever, because like it's really clear Elon or people working very closely under him are like looking at DMs now. Like that was reported somewhere, I forget where, but like it's not even like a safe communication platform anymore. So like even if I was still on Twitter, to be like, don't fucking it never was, because it was never end-to-end encrypted.
Among other,
it's
that's not even the worst of the reasons. Twitter has had several, or people have found several ways to break in and read DMs anyway.
Yeah.
But Twitter has always had a lot of problems and is definitely an insecure mess. But I mean, okay, so to the point that Twitter has gotten worse, about 2 weeks ago, this came up. This is actually, I don't know how the hell I even stumbled across this, but this is the blog of some app developer, and he, as far as I can tell, I don't think he actually blogs much. He just kind of collects quotes from other people. So this is sort of like, imagine Daring Fireball, but less daring. Anyway, it's a bunch of people who'd written that they were missing tweets, and just in like a very specific sense, people they followed, those tweets are not showing up. This particular collection was, or this person posted this collection of quotes on January 26th, and I've been hearing complaints about this for the last few weeks. Apparently, this is just becoming a very common thing where people that you follow, you can look at their feed, or you can look at your own feed of like the aggregated tweets from people you follow, and their tweets just don't show up. You know they tweeted, you can talk to them, you can ask them directly like, hey, have you said anything since such and such date? And they will, like, they may be posting, but you don't see any or some of their tweets. Like, Twitter is legitimately breaking. This is something that some of their engineers said would happen. Granted, I think everyone assumed that was going to happen probably a little earlier than this, but it's happening. Like, Twitter servers seem to be crunching under the weight of all the activity, which honestly, I think that's why Elon is jumping to limit the API now. Because the more accounts that are posting, the less they can sort of put a muzzle on how much activity is being funneled through Twitter. So if they muzzle it now, maybe they can, I think the goal here is just to try to restore the service as much as they can. But it's whether or not it helps is kind of besides the point. The fact is, Twitter is literally breaking down in front of people. And if people knew a little better that that was happening, I think they'd be even more inclined to start checking out Mastodon. I think they'd be more inclined to maybe not even check out Mastodon, but just go anywhere else.
Yeah, and there's now also a growing ecosystem of other designated Twitter replacements, and they all seem like pretty bad for one reason or another. I'm sure there's going to be one in maybe a year or two from like Facebook that's going to be like the new one that people are more willing to switch to. Like, I'm not necessarily opposed to like a different centralized thing from like a somewhat reputable company. Meta I don't think falls under that, but
No.
you know what I mean, like someone who knows how to operate servers and makes like reasonable business decisions. But like Twitter's definitely not that anymore.
As it stands, like not even, well, political reasons make it a perfectly good reason to not be using Twitter. But for completely apolitical reasons, Twitter is just not a good place to be directing a lot of your efforts at this stage, in my opinion. I certainly am not going to tell anyone how they should use the internet. I'm not going to tell anyone that they shouldn't go to Twitter. As it stands, I still open up Twitter on a fairly regular basis, just to check a few accounts that I know that they're people who aren't moving, or actually it's not even people, it's all companies. But right now, they're not going anywhere, so I'll load it up. I have pages pointed to those specific accounts, and I check if they've posted anything recently. And that's the extent to which I'm really using it. Every once in a while, if I really get in the mood, I might peek at what the trending topics are. I usually don't even read the tweets. I just want to see what the topics are, and then I usually close it right after. Like, that's the extent to which I use it, and that's not daily for sure. I'd say at most I'm looking at Twitter in any form maybe twice a week, and that accounts for less than 5 minutes total.
Yeah. Hippie said, it occurs to me that it's very odd that Facebook or Instagram hasn't jumped in yet. They've been very fast to say eat Snapchat's lunch in the past. Yeah, I think part of the issue here is also that Twitter is that all of these are Twitter's big thing for a lot of people was like, you're seeing something immediately as it's happening.
Yeah.
And there's like nothing in the way. You're just getting like a dump of information in a list, and no one else wants to do that because it doesn't make as much money.
Well, that used to be Twitter's thing. I would argue it hasn't been for a long time. Because holy crap.
They've been going in the other direction because the other direction makes way more money.
Yeah.
So like if Twitter's thing was like a thing that like significantly boosted user interaction, like they would have been copied 10 years ago. But everyone's been going the other, like this is part of a larger thing going on where Twitter was almost like the last of its breed of like social media platforms where you could just like see the posts in a list, and it's like an actual like social media network where like you follow specific people and you just see the stuff from those people. But now you have, every platform mixing up the posts so they can, also shove more ads in, that kind of stuff. And then more recently, just this idea of like, you don't follow people at all. You just get like a personalized content dump.
Yeah.
Like you get TikTok, you get Google Discover, whatever. So like everyone's already like moving away from like what Twitter was in a direction I don't really like. So I think that's why there isn't like Meta hasn't copied them yet, because it doesn't really make sense for them to.
Well, and I would ask, what would it even look like if they tried to copy this? Well, also what would the side effect be? But I'll hit that momentarily. But how would Facebook copy this? Do they start a whole separate service that is a knockoff? That doesn't make sense because, frankly, they would have to spend a fortune trying to acquire people, and they're not going to be successful. They'd be trying to steal too many people. They could try to buy up some of the early competitors, but no one has been individually successful enough to be worth buying up. So the only other explanation is Facebook could try to create its own subservice that would be a Twitter clone, but it lives within Facebook or lives within Instagram or something like that.
Yeah.
In practical terms, actually, if they're going to do anything, the smart move is to just expand Instagram so it's also includes text posts. But I don't think they want to do that either. But otherwise, Instagram is already basically just Twitter minus text posts.
Yeah. And really all Twitter had going for it was really quick information access in a way that no one wants to do anymore because it doesn't make a lot of money. And also the specific people who were on Twitter, which were already kind of starting to fragment into other places, and is now obviously much worse, to the point where a lot of people just went back to Instagram. So, a lot of the again, business people I was making fun of earlier went to LinkedIn. I looked at Facebook for 10 minutes. I was like, is this because I know a lot of people I know are on there and check it at least somewhat infrequently. Can I use this? How bad is it? It's really bad. I looked at the home feed. I'm like, where are the people I follow? It's just feeding me 5-minute crafts videos. I don't know why it's giving me this.
Yeah. So I would also argue there's another really good reason that Meta has not tried to copy this or buy into this. And it comes down to the fact that they're already being accused of controlling too much of the social networking industry and having been way too predatory. If they bought their way into a Twitter clone, or even if they bought Twitter itself, it is just going to... They are literally just asking for even more scrutiny. They would be such a target, and all for trying to get into a social network that, as we've already seen, or at least as Elon Musk has already said personally, isn't profitable, or at least not very, and is hemorrhaging money. So if Meta wants to do something, why get into the thing that's probably going to cost them money and piss off every politician out there? That is the losingest combo there actually could be. Not that I disagree with the argument. I think if any company is out there thinking, oh, we should get into this, I agree, it's Meta. 100%. That sounds like them. It just logically would be a bad idea.
And it sucks because at one point I really liked Twitter, and there's not really a thing that is like old Twitter.
I gotta admit, I've never actually liked Twitter, but I say admit, I've always been pretty happy and eager to say I've never liked Twitter, but I will admit I started to become more open to it in the last couple of years. And just as I'm like, okay, I guess I have to finally tolerate this thing, that's when Elon comes along and ruins it. And it's like, oh, well, good. I already saw this coming, just not like this.
Yeah, because really my issues with Twitter for a long time were very early on, all the apps were bad. So you had to use another app, but then there was that fun period where they started locking down on third-party apps while their official apps were still bad.
Yeah.
And then eventually, at least the Android app became tolerable. And but then that got into like the phase of Twitter where the pressing issue was not anything related to the technology. Really, it was just its moderation decisions, where really it just let Trump run his mouth for 4 years, because that's what got them headlines every week. And a lot of active users. And as soon as Trump was gone and they banned him, there was like an additional wave of like, all right, clean out the trash. We need to not do this. We don't have to do this anymore. And it was like, better. But yeah, and that's the other thing that drives me crazy is like all the people who are like, yeah, it's still fine, but it's like every single week Elon specifically unbans someone who is a terrible person and then lets them run free again. It's like, I do not want to be in the same place as Andrew Tate. I think I'm good. I don't need to be here.
Yeah.
And it's like I really struggle to the point where, again, like really the only arguments I can get behind is like you have a group of people who are like just not gonna go, or you follow like the government accounts that are not gonna go. Like I get those kinds of use cases. It's when like people like throughout want to be like, no, it's fine, this other thing's terrible. Like,
yeah, well, again, it's the refusal
the intention,
to
I
move.
guess is yeah,
or refusal to accept that things have changed. Though again, like I never like agreeing with this guy because, oh my god, he is just, I can't call him the worst, but god, he's real close.
That's a good comment.
Nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, while I don't want to agree with him, it's hard not to at least acknowledge that he's right, that Mastodon's probably not about to reach that point where its current 1.4, was it 1.4 million? I thought Mastodon had cleared like 2 million. Anyway, maybe he was only talking active users. I don't care. Anyway,
yeah,
that number is literally less than 1% of Twitter's user base, which, to be fair, Twitter's user base is a whole lot of bots and not real people in many instances. So who knows what the actual number is. But all things considered, yeah, Mastodon's probably not going to ever catch up or take over. But it's still a decent service, and it gets the job done in a way that Twitter currently is not getting it done.
Yeah, like there's really like nothing else there. Like if you just want like a feed of people, like I don't.
And at least you'll get their tweets. You can't say that about Twitter right now. You can only say that about Mastodon.
Yeah, and it's very weird. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, follow me on Mastodon.
Yes, same here. There will not be links in the description.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm waiting for that Ivory for Mac app to drop, and I'm hoping along with that some kind of like discounted subscription thing where I get both the Mac and the iPhone app, because they made it like the one thing that looked like, first of all, the Ivory Mac app looks really nice. Like they are using like the Catalyst thing, but the screenshots they shared look nice. And honestly, the Twitter app for Mac, before I uninstalled it because I don't want Elon software on my devices, was pretty good, and that was Catalyst. So I think it'll probably be okay. But like it looked really nice, and also they're doing what Tweetbot had, which is like cloud synchronizing the last message you read or like where you are in the timeline. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's gonna be really cool. So I'm excited for that, which is part of the reason I'm missing posts right now on Mastodon, is because people are posting too much, and also I don't have my shiny good Mastodon desktop app yet.
I don't remember off the top of my head. How much was Ivory for Mastodon? What was their subscription?
I want to say it was $10 a year. Let me see. Okay, so if I go to the app
For some
store,
reason, I thought it worked out to like $2 a month or just under.
The monthly option is $2 a month. The yearly, and this is just for the iPhone, iPad app, is
right
$15 a year. So
okay,
that's $1.25 a month.
Yeah, I started writing a personal blog post about this, but never finished it, or haven't finished it yet, at least. Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I'm skeptical that they're going to make it even as low cost a subscription as that for the Mac app, which will be unfortunate because I think a lot of people don't want to pay a ton for apps, especially in a subscription mode.
Yeah, it's tough. I did see one of the developers talking about this, and they were like, their explanation was like, number one, like, because this is more than Tweetbot was. So I think someone was asking like, why is it different from Tweetbot? And I think if I remember, their answer was something like, number one, we were undervaluing Tweetbot, like it costs more to make or something like that. And then the other thing is like, there's just far fewer Mastodon users, so
yeah,
harder to break even on with a much because you're talking about a fraction of a fraction, where people on Mastodon who are also using Apple devices who also will pay for software. So
well, that fraction of
I get why it is.
To be fair, that fraction of a fraction was already a Twitter thing. That nothing's different there. But
right.
Yeah, when your user numbers are already much lower than Twitter, or Mastodon's user numbers are already lower than Twitter, you've got a much smaller market to sell to. And yes, when you further fraction it by platform, it's not enough people to keep a business going just off of one-time sales, or even off of a very cheap subscription. That being said, yeah, part of me is still skeptical about the how much people really want to pay for app subscriptions. Not that I think there's anything wrong with app subscriptions. I think in some cases it's well justified. But yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling kind of that burn with Mastodon too, where you're encouraged to donate to the instance admins. You're encouraged to at least several apps have either already confirmed or will have or do have some sort of subscription fee associated with them. Like, you start adding that up, and I think a lot of people are feeling a cost associated here, which the premise of the blog post that I was writing, and just to give the extremely short summary of this, is right now the cost to have an app and to donate to your server admin every month adds up very traditionally to about $5. Because the apps that want to charge you, it seems like $2 is the price a lot of them want to go with. And the price everyone seems to be recommending that you donate to a server admin is about $3 a month. You know what else was $5 a month 10 years ago? App.net. The thing that was supposed to be the we hate Twitter, we're going to start something different, 10 years ago was going to cost the same amount that everyone's kind of getting funneled into spending now to do Mastodon right. And I can't help but find some irony in the fact that at the time, everyone was in clear agreement app.net was going to be a failure. And frankly, it actually offered a much better thing because it was offering a lot of online space if you paid for it. And it was offering a lot of other perks and things that you didn't get or you won't get out of Mastodon. So, yeah, it's just kind of funny how things work out.
And also, that $5 is less than half of what you will be paying for Twitter Blue right now.
Yes.
So, you know, it's very funny. But I'm excited for the Mac Ivory app because I don't really want to read. I never really use Twitter on my phone anyway, so I don't use Mastodon that much on there. So most excited for the Mac app.
Yeah, I want to see it. I don't necessarily. Well, I'm not going to be spending on it, at least not right now, just because saving money. But that and I'm just not good at keeping my eyes on Mastodon or any social network. I pretty much keep my eyes on Discord, and the rest of the time I'm looking at or doing other things. Keeping my eyes on Twitter and Mastodon, just don't have time for it.
Yeah, and that gets back to the thing where I'm like, you don't want to go to Mastodon because you already didn't really like Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. That's fine.
Though I'd rather go to Mastodon than Twitter anyway.
Yeah. Less angry there.
Mostly.
So, yeah. I'm gonna go get food now.
Yeah. No. That's actually a good idea, and one I think I'm gonna do as well, because also this was the last topic I had prepared. And I know you didn't have anything else lined up, so yeah. Corbin, where should people find you, and what should people do and click and things?
You can go to corbin.io. I have all my stuff there now organized. I updated my website. Looks pretty snazzy now, with links to Tech Tales on everything. And there's a new Tech Tales coming this Saturday. And also I'm recording another one on Sunday. Keeping the content flow going.
Hell yeah. All right.
I think the next one's like 40 minutes long. It's another big boy.
The chonkers are rolling steady.
Mm-hmm.
Austin forgot to cover China stealing Google's Moon IP. Damn you, that is kind of hilarious. And yeah, that's a weirdly brilliant point. Also, I have a funny feeling a lot more is going to be coming of that, but we'll see. I also saw the link you posted about Google emphasizing AR. Sorry, I didn't really get a chance to read through or check that out very closely, but the part of that title that says that they're shifting work to Android and hardware teams worries me. That is concerning in so many ways, because it just feels like we're gonna end up with another bad Glass thing. Glass meets Daydream, and I think it's probably gonna end up not being great. But we'll see. You know, right now this is just a report from inside that doesn't really tell us much, and just kind of promises things might happen and they might be involved with Android. and that's kind of as far as it goes. Meanwhile, the guy who was responsible for Daydream, he's gonna be leaving. So, you know, there's that. None of it really seems that relevant though. So anyway, but who knows? We'll see. Maybe in 2 or 3 years they'll have something to announce after Apple has already completely dominated this space. But with that, for me, I should be gaming Saturday for sure with The Last of Us. Again, probably taking off Sunday, I think, and hopefully this time I'll actually be streaming Monday night after, or around the same time, or maybe a little bit later, something like that. We'll see. It's kind of trying to make that happen, but kind of bad at it. Anyway, so with that, thank you everyone for coming by, hanging out, being part of the conversation. We like you guys. You're awesome. And we will be back next week. At least I will be, and I'm pretty sure Corbin will be. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. He might.
Probably. I don't know.
Committal. Anyway, if you'd like to support the channel, there are links down below to Streamlabs, Patreon, and Cash App. All donations are appreciated. They do help keep the channel going. But I won't come to your house and murder you if you don't. I might. I won't. It's possible. But probably not. But with that, thank you guys for coming by, and we'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.